Admiral stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, staring at the emergency transmission that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. His jaw tightened as he read the words for the third time. Behind him, Captain Park waited silently, her hands clasped behind her back. "They want us to negotiate," said quietly. The anger in his voice was barely controlled. 47,000 dead, and they want us to sit down and talk. Stepped forward. "Sir, the reports from New are still coming in. The collective didn't just attack our colony. They burned it. They targeted civilian shelters, hospitals, schools." She paused. There were children in those shelters. Closed his eyes for a moment. He had seen the footage. The collective's warships had appeared without warning over the human colony world. No demands, no threats, just death raining from the sky. When the colony's small defense force tried to fight back, the collective had unleashed weapons that turned entire city blocks into glass. "Get Ambassador on the line," ordered. Ambassador Lee appeared on the moments later. She looked tired, had spent the last 15 years trying to build relationships with the other council species. She had learned their languages, studied their cultures, and worked endless hours to prove that humanity deserved their place among the stars. "You've seen the summons," said. "It wasn't a question." "I've seen it," replied. "Tell me this is some kind of mistake." Shook her head. "It's not a mistake. The Council operates under the doctrine of harmonious resolution. Any conflict between species must be resolved through negotiation, not violence. They killed 47,000 of our people." "I know," his voice cracked slightly. "I've been arguing with the Council representatives for 6 hours. They don't see it the way we do." "Couldn't stay quiet. How do they see it, Ambassador?" Looked at the young captain. "They believe the collective must have had a reason to attack. They think New must have provoked them somehow. The Council wants both sides to meet and find a balanced solution." "A balanced solution," repeated. The words tasted like poison. "What does that even mean?" "It means we have to give them something," said. "The Council always seeks balance. If one side takes action, the other side must receive compensation. That's how they've maintained peace for 50,000 years." Turned away from the screen. He walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. His fleet hung in space around the Indomitable. 37 warships, the best humanity had built. They were ready. The crews were ready. But the orders from Earth were clear. Attend the negotiation. "What do we know about the collective?" asked. Doctor's voice came through the speakers. The chief had been listening to the conversation. "Admiral, I've been researching them since the attack. The collective is a hive species. They expand by consuming resources from other worlds. They've been raiding smaller species for decades. And the Council lets them. The Council negotiates settlements," explained. "Every time the collective attacks someone, the Council mediates. The victims give up territory or resources, and the collective moves on." Made a sound of disgust. "So the Council rewards aggression." "They call it maintaining harmony," said. "From their perspective, a small sacrifice by the victim prevents a larger war." Turned back to face on the screen. "I need to understand something, Ambassador. In all these negotiations, has anyone ever fought back?" Was quiet for a moment. "No, no species has ever refused to negotiate. The Council's authority is absolute. If we refuse, we'll be declared in violation of Council law." "And if we attend this negotiation, what happens to New?" His expression told him everything. "Based on past mediations, we'll probably have to cede the planet to the collective. Maybe 2 or 3 other frontier worlds as well, and we'll pay reparations." "We'll pay them," his voice rose. "They murder our people and we pay them." "That's how the system works," said. She looked defeated. "I've been fighting it, but I'm one voice against 12 ancient civilizations. They don't understand us. They think our anger is primitive, emotional. They've evolved past such things." Sat down in his command chair. He thought about the families on New. He thought about the soldiers who had died defending them. He thought about the children. "What are your orders, Admiral?" asked quietly. "We follow Earth's command," said. "We attend the negotiation, but prepare the fleet for combat operations." "Sir." "You heard me, Captain. I want every ship ready to fight. Full weapons, full shields. If this negotiation goes the way I think it will, I want options." Nodded and moved to carry out his orders, looked back at. "I'll meet you at Council Prime," he said. "But Ambassador, I need you to understand something. I've fought in wars before. I've made hard choices, but I've never abandoned my people, and I'm not going to start now." Met his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if the Council expects us to surrender our worlds and pay the people who murdered our families, they're going to be disappointed. Please, think about what you're saying. If we defy the Council, we'll stand alone. Every species in the galaxy will turn against us." "Then we stand alone," said simply. After the transmission ended, sat in silence. His second officer commander approached carefully. "Sir, permission to speak freely." "Granted." "The crew is angry. They all know people who died on Nu. If you give the word, they'll follow you anywhere." Nodded slowly. "I know, that's what worries me. I might be leading them into a war we can't win." Shook his head. "With respect, sir, some things are worth fighting for, even if you can't win." On Earth, President Wu Jin-sung received the same reports. He stood in his office, looking at the images from Nu, the burned cities, the mass graves, the survivors who would never be the same. His advisor spoke quietly. "Mr. President, the people are demanding action. There are protests in every major city. They're calling for war." Wu didn't respond immediately. He thought about his responsibility. He was the leader of all humanity, spread across dozens of worlds now. His decisions would affect billions. "Tell Admiral to attend the negotiation," Wu said finally. "But make sure he knows he has the full support of Earth. Whatever happens in that chamber, humanity will not bow." As the Indomitable began its journey to Council Prime, the crew prepared. They cleaned their weapons. They ran combat drills. They said prayers for their dead. In the medical bay, a survivor from Nu named Bora lay recovering from her injuries. She had been pulled from the rubble of her home. Her family hadn't been so lucky. When she heard about the negotiation, she asked to speak to Admiral. "I want to testify," she told him. "I want those council members to hear what happened. I want them to look at me and explain why I should give up anything to the monsters who killed my daughter." Looked at the young woman. Burns covered half her face. Her arm was in a regeneration sleeve. "You'll have your chance," he promised. The Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading toward the center of the galaxy, toward the Council, toward a negotiation that would change everything. None of them knew it yet, but humanity was about to do something that no species had done in 50,000 years. They were about to say no. The Grand Amphitheater was the oldest structure in known space. It hung at the center of the galaxy, a massive station built by the first Council species millions of years ago. Its walls were made of a material that seemed to shift between states of matter, glowing with soft light. Ambassador Lee walked through its corridors, trying to calm her nerves. Behind her came Admiral, Doctor, and a security detail. Their footsteps echoed in the vast, empty spaces. "It's designed to make you feel small," whispered Tu. "Every part of this place is meant to remind visitors that the Council is ancient and powerful." "It's working," admitted. They entered the main chamber. 12 raised platforms circled the room, each holding a representative from the Council species. The beings on those platforms were strange and varied. Some looked like they were made of crystal. Others seemed to be clouds of gas held together by force fields. One appeared to be a mathematical equation that had somehow achieved consciousness. At the highest platform sat the leader of the Council. No one knew what species the belonged to. It was simply a glowing sphere of light that spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The humans have arrived," they announced. "Let the mediation begin." On the opposite side of the chamber, the collective delegation waited. They looked like insects, but larger than any human. Their exoskeletons were dark and shining. Multiple eyes reflected the light. When they moved as one unit, perfectly synchronized. "Both parties will present their positions," they said. "The council will then determine the path to harmony." The collective spoke first. Their voice was a chorus, many speaking as one. "We claim the territory known as Nu. The humans built their colony in space that rightfully belongs to the collective. We sought to reclaim what is ours." Stepped forward, her heart pounding. "That's a lie. Nu was surveyed and claimed according to all council protocols. We filed the proper documents. We followed every rule. The collective had no claim to that world." "The collective believes otherwise," they said. "Belief is truth in matters of territorial dispute." Admiral felt his fists clench. He forced himself to stay quiet. This was arena, not his. "Beyond the territorial question," continued, "there's the matter of the attack itself. The collective killed 47,000 civilians. They targeted non-military installations. They committed mass murder." One of the council members, a being that looked like living water, spoke in a gurgling voice. "Strong words, Ambassador, but conflict always has two sides. What did your people do to provoke this response?" Provoke couldn't believe what she was hearing. "We did nothing. They arrived without warning and opened fire." "Surely there must have been some incident," another council member said. "Some misunderstanding that escalated." Stepped forward with a data pad. "We've analyzed all communications from Nu for the 6 months before the attack. There was no contact with the collective, no disputes, no incidents, nothing." The slight pulsed. Then perhaps the provocation was unconscious. Perhaps the very presence of humans in that region of space was offensive to the collective's cultural values. "Couldn't stay quiet anymore, so we provoked them by existing." "Admiral," they said, "emotional outbursts are not productive. We are here to find balance, not to assign blame." "How can you find balance without determining who was wrong?" "Wrong is a primitive concept," they replied. "The council seeks harmony, not judgment." Saw her carefully prepared arguments crumbling. She had studied council law for years. She knew the precedents, the procedures, but she was starting to understand that none of it mattered. "I request permission to present a witness," said. They paused. "This is unusual but permitted." Bora entered the chamber. She walked slowly, still recovering from her injuries. The burns on her face were visible to everyone. She stood in the center of the room and looked up at the council members. "My name is Bora," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I lived on Nu with my husband and my 8-year-old daughter. We had a small farm outside the main settlement." The chamber was silent. Even the collective stopped moving. "I was in the fields when the ships came," Bora continued. "I saw them descend. I ran toward our house because I knew my daughter was there. She was doing her homework." Watch the council members. Most showed no reaction. "The beam hit our house before I was halfway there," Bora said. "I saw it turn to ash. I felt the heat from 100 meters away. I screamed my daughter's name, but there was nothing, nothing but ash." A tear ran down her burned face. "I want someone to explain to me why I should give anything to the creatures who did this. I want to know what balance means when my child is dead and they're sitting here demanding payment." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then they spoke. "Your pain is noted, but individual suffering cannot outweigh the need for galactic harmony." Bora stared up at the glowing sphere. "That's all you have to say. Personal grief is temporary. Peace is eternal. This is the wisdom the council has learned over 50,000 years." Put his hand on Bora's shoulder and gently guided her back. He could feel her shaking with rage and sorrow. The collective spoke again. We propose the following terms. The humans will cede new and 2 additional frontier worlds to the collective. They will also pay reparations equal to the cost of our military expedition. In return, we will not expand further into human space for a period of 10 standard years. Unacceptable, said immediately. Ambassador Lee, the said, you will have the opportunity to present a counter-proposal. Took a deep breath. Humanity's counter-proposal is simple. The collective will withdraw from new. They will pay reparations to the families of the victims, and they will surrender their commanders to face trial for war crimes. Several council members made sounds of shock. The light flickered. That is not a negotiation, the said. That is a demand for surrender. They murdered 47,000 people. And you wish to punish them for it. This is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to endless cycles of violence. The council exists to break those cycles. Another council member, this one appearing as a floating geometric shape, spoke up. The human position is clearly unreasonable. We should move to a vote on the collective's proposal. Wait, pleaded. You can't just accept their terms. They're the aggressors. In your view, the geometric being replied, but the council must consider all perspectives equally. Han Song, the intelligence officer, had been standing quietly in the background. Now he stepped forward and handed a data tablet. She glanced at it and her eyes widened. I have information the council needs to see, announced. Proceed, the said. My people have been reviewing records of past council mediations, said. In the last 1,000 years, there have been 634 cases similar to this one. In 524 of those cases, the victim species was required to make concessions to the aggressor. Context is important in each case, the said. Is it? His voice grew stronger. Because it looks like a pattern to me. The council doesn't mediate disputes. It appeases aggressors to avoid conflict. You go too far, Ambassador. Do I? Let me read from just one example. 70 years ago, a species called were attacked by raiders. 5,000 died. The council mediated. The result? They had to give up their richest colony world. Where are they now? No one answered. They're extinct, said. They gave up their best world. Then more raiders came because they knew the council would force them to negotiate. Within 20 years, they had nothing left. That is an oversimplification of complex events, the said. It's the truth. The light grew brighter, almost painful to look at. The council has voted to proceed. All members will now vote on the collective's proposal. One by one, the council members voted. Each one said yes. 11 votes in favor, 0 against. Humanity abstained. The motion carries, they declared. The human delegation has 24 hours to sign the agreement. New and 2 other frontier worlds will be ceded to the collective. Reparations will be paid. In return, the collective guarantees a 10-year peace. Stood frozen. She had failed. Everything she had worked for, all her years of diplomacy, meant nothing. Admiral leaned close to her. We're leaving, he said quietly. They walked out of the chamber together. The collective made chittering sounds that might have been laughter. The conference room aboard the Indomitable was crowded. Admiral sat at the head of the table, surrounded by his senior officers. Ambassador stood by the where President Wu appeared from Earth. Doctor worked at a console, pulling up data. Bora sat in the corner, her bandaged hands folded in her lap. Let me make sure I understand, President Wu said. His face looked older than it had a week ago. The council wants us to give the collective 3 of our worlds and pay them for the privilege of being attacked. That's correct, Mr. President said. Her voice was hollow. She hadn't slept since the council vote. And if we refuse? Then we'll be declared in violation of council law. Economic sanctions at minimum. Possibly military action if we're deemed a threat to galactic peace. Wu was quiet for a moment. What are our people saying? They're angry, sir, Commander reported. Every human colony is protesting. The messages coming in are all the same. Don't surrender, don't give them anything. Public opinion is running 94% against accepting the Council's terms, added. Captain spoke up. Mr. President, if I may, my pilots are ready. The whole fleet is ready. If you give the order, we'll fight. Against the entire Galactic Council, Wu asked. If necessary, sir. Cleared his throat. Mr. President, I've run the numbers. In a straight fight against the Council's combined forces, we'd lose, badly. But that's not the only consideration here. Explain. The Council has overwhelming force, but they've never had to use it. Their system is built on compliance, not combat. I don't think they have the will to fight a real war, even if they have the weapons. You're gambling with billions of lives, Admiral. I know, sir, but I'm also looking at the alternative. If we accept these terms, what happens the next time someone attacks us? The Council has set the precedent. Victims must make concessions. We'll be seen as weak, as acceptable targets. Han Song pulled up a star chart. Sir, I've been tracking collective movements. They're already positioning ships near 2 more human colonies. They're not waiting for the 10-year peace period. They think we'll surrender everything without a fight. Bora stood up suddenly. Everyone looked at her. When she spoke, her voice was rough with emotion. I don't care about politics or strategy, she said. I just want to know one thing. If we accept this deal, does my daughter's death mean anything? Or did she die for nothing? The room fell silent. Because if we're going to hand over our worlds to the things that killed her, Bora continued, then she died for nothing. And every person who dies tomorrow when the collective attacks again will die for nothing. Wu's image flickered on the screen. Admiral, what is your recommendation? Stood up. He'd been in the military for 30 years. He'd fought in the resource wars back when humanity was still confined to one solar system. He'd made hard choices before, but never one like this. Sir, I recommend we reject the Council's terms. I recommend we withdraw from the Galactic Council entirely, and I recommend we prepare for war. Ambassador Lee, you've been quiet, Wu said. What's your position? Had spent her entire career building bridges between humanity and the other species. She believed in diplomacy. She believed in finding peaceful solutions. But she'd also seen the council chamber. She'd seen how they looked at Bora's tears and felt nothing. Mr. President said slowly, I've always believed that talking is better than fighting, but this isn't talking. The council doesn't negotiate. They dictate. And they don't care about justice. They only care about avoiding conflict, even if it means rewarding the people who start them. She took a breath. I spent 15 years trying to earn humanity's place in the galactic community. I learned their languages. I studied their customs. I thought if we just proved ourselves civilized enough, they'd respect us. But they don't respect us. They think we're primitive because we feel anger when our children are murdered. His hands were shaking now. So yes, sir, I support Admiral's recommendation. We reject the Council. We stand alone if we have to. Because submission isn't peace. It's just slow death. President Wu nodded slowly. I need to make a call. Give me 1 hour. The screen went dark. The hour passed in tense silence. Officers checked and rechecked systems. Pilots ran through combat scenarios. In every human settlement across the galaxy, people waited. When Wu's face appeared again, his expression was set. I've consulted with the planetary governors and the civilian leadership, he said. The decision is unanimous. Humanity rejects the Council's terms. Ambassador Lee, you are authorized to inform the Council that we are withdrawing our membership effective immediately. Admiral, you are authorized to defend human space by any means necessary. Understood, sir, said. One more thing, Wu added. Make sure they understand why we're doing this. Make sure the whole galaxy hears it. 6 hours later, the human delegation returned to the Grand Amphitheater. This time, they weren't alone. News of the Council's decision had spread quickly. Representatives from dozens of species filled the observation galleries. They all wanted to see what the humans would do. The light pulsed with what might have been satisfaction. "Ambassador Lee, have you come to sign the agreement?" "No," said. Her voice was clear and strong. "We've come to deliver humanity's response." "Proceed." Walked to the center of the chamber. She looked up at each council member in turn. Then she began to speak. "For 15 years, humanity has been a member of this council. We came here with hope. We believed that joining the galactic community would make us better. We believed in your system of peaceful resolution." "We are pleased to hear this," they said. "I'm not finished," interrupted. "We believed in your system, past tense, because we've seen how your system actually works. You don't seek peace, you enforce submission." Murmurs spread through the galleries. "The collective murdered 47,000 of our people, 47,000 civilians, children, families, and your response was to reward them, to give them what they wanted. You call it balance, we call it cowardice." "Ambassador, you are out of order," they warned. "I'm not an ambassador anymore," said. "Because humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We reject your mediation, we reject your authority, and we reject your version of peace." The chamber erupted. Council members spoke over each other. The galleries buzzed with shocked conversation. Admiral stepped forward to stand beside. His uniform was crisp, his bearing military and proud. "As of this moment," announced, "all human forces are withdrawing from Council space. Any attempt to enforce sanctions or use military force against human territories will be considered an act of war. We will defend ourselves." The light blazed. "This is unprecedented. No species has ever rejected a council mediation. You are in violation of every law that holds galactic civilization together." "Your laws protect predators and punish victims," shot back. "Those aren't laws worth following." One of the council members, the being made of crystal, spoke up. "You condemn yourselves to isolation. No species will trade with you. No one will ally with you. You will stand alone against the entire galaxy." "Then we stand alone," said simply. Doctor stepped forward with a data pad. "We've prepared a full statement for the record. It details every case in the last 1,000 years where the Council forced victims to appease aggressors. We're releasing it publicly. Let the galaxy judge whether your system serves justice or just serves itself." "You cannot do this," this voice boomed. "We just did," said. He took his arm and turned to leave. Captain and the rest of the human delegation followed. As they walked toward the exit, stopped and looked back. "One more thing," she called out. "The collective is positioning ships to attack 2 more human colonies. We know this, and we're going to stop them, not by negotiating, not by surrendering, by fighting. Watch what happens when someone actually stands up to predators instead of feeding them." The human delegation left the Grand Amphitheater. Behind them, chaos erupted. In the galleries, representatives from smaller species whispered to each other. Many of them had been victims of attacks that the Council had mediated. Many had given up worlds, resources, even populations to satisfy the Council's need for harmony. And now, for the first time in 50,000 years, someone had said no. Aboard the Indomitable, the crew erupted in cheers when they heard what happened. Went straight to the bridge and gave his orders. "Set course for the collective fleet positions, maximum speed, and send a message to all human colonies, prepare for war." Stood beside him, watching the stars stream past as the ship accelerated. "We might have just doomed humanity," she said quietly. "Maybe," agreed, "or maybe we just saved it." 3 months had passed since humanity rejected the Council. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. They seemed different now, lonelier. Status report, he said to Commander. All human colonies are on high alert. We've repositioned the fleet to cover our most vulnerable worlds. Trade has dropped by 60% since the Council sanctions took effect. And the collective? They attacked the colony at noon 2 weeks ago, but this time we were ready. Smiled grimly. How many of their ships did we destroy? All of them. Captain led the defense. The collective doesn't seem to know what to do when someone fights back. That was the one bright spot. The collective had expected humanity to be easy prey. They were learning otherwise. Every raid they attempted ended in disaster for them. Human forces were smaller than the Council's vast fleets, but they fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. Sir, incoming transmission, a communications officer called out. It's encrypted, unknown origin. Put it through. A face appeared on the screen. It belonged to a species didn't recognize. The being had 4 eyes and skin that shimmered like oil on water. Admiral of Earth, the being said in halting but understandable human language. My name is Saranam, though you may call me by the human designation. I represent the people. I'm not familiar with the... We are a small species, only 12 worlds. We have been members of the Galactic Council for 300 years. Then why are you contacting me? Your council has declared us outcasts. Saranam's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. That is why I contact you. They have watched what you did, how you stood before the council and said no. For 300 years we have wished to do the same. Leaned forward, tell me more. Over the next hour, Saranam explained. They had been attacked repeatedly over the centuries by larger, more aggressive species. Each time the council mediated. Each time the lost territory. Their 12 worlds used to be 37. We are dying slowly, Saranam said. The council's peace is killing us, but we were too afraid to resist. We thought we were alone. And now we see that someone was brave enough to stand, and we wonder if perhaps we could stand with you. After the transmission ended, called an emergency meeting. Ambassador, Doctor, and President Wu joined via hologram. It might be a trap, warned. I don't think so, said. I've been receiving similar messages through back channels. Small species, victims of council mediations, all asking the same thing. Can they join us? How many? Wu asked. At least 6 that I know of, maybe more. Pulled up a star chart. If we allied with even half a dozen other species, we'd have a defensive network, mutual protection, shared technology. We'd also be accepting responsibility for defending them, Wu pointed out. Our resources are already stretched thin. True, but together we'd be stronger than apart. Isn't that the whole point of an alliance? Was working on calculations. I've been analyzing the council's structure. It's held together by fear and tradition. The big, powerful species dominate. The small ones survive by accepting whatever scraps they're given. But there are hundreds of small species, if even a fraction of them joined us. We'd have the numbers to matter, finished. Over the next weeks, secret meetings took place across the galaxy. Human ships rendezvoused with vessels from a dozen other species. The meetings were tense at first. These species had little in common except their grievances against the council system. But slowly agreements were reached. Commander, a merchant captain who had volunteered for diplomatic duty, became the primary liaison. She traveled from world to world, building relationships, establishing trust. The key is showing them we're serious, reported to. These species have been betrayed before. They need to see that we'll actually fight for them. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The collective launched a major assault on a species called the... There were peaceful traders who had only 8 small ships for defense. The council called for negotiations. If we do nothing, they will lose there, said. If we intervene, we're starting a war, Wu replied. We're already at war, said. We just haven't admitted it yet. The decision was made. The human fleet, along with ships from the and two other new allies, jumped into the system. They arrived just as the collective forces were beginning their bombardment. Captain led the fighter squadrons. Her tactical brilliance had become legendary in the months since the Council rejection. She saw the collective formation and immediately identified its weakness. All fighters target their command ship, she ordered. When it goes down, the rest will lose coordination. The battle was fierce but short. The collective had never faced coordinated resistance before. Their tactics were designed for raiding defenseless colonies, not fighting determined defenders. Within 2 hours, the collective fleet was destroyed or fleeing. They were saved. News of the battle spread quickly. Within days, 8 more species requested to join what was now being called the Free Worlds Compact. Within a month, the number grew to 23. Doctor spent his time analyzing the political situation. The Council is in chaos, he reported. 3 major species are having internal debates about whether to stay in the Council. Dozens of minor species are quietly supporting us. Why haven't they joined officially? Asked. Fear. The Council still has massive military power, and he is threatening severe consequences for anyone who joins us. But the threats were becoming hollow. The Council had never enforced its rules through violence before. They didn't know how. Meanwhile, Intelligence Officer Han Song made a crucial discovery. Sir, I've been monitoring Council communications, he told. There's a split developing. Some Council members want to crush us before we get stronger, but others are questioning the whole system. Which ones? Surprisingly, some of the oldest species. They remember when the Council was founded. It was supposed to be a forum for genuine dialogue, not a tool for controlling everyone. Seized on this information, she began reaching out to moderate Council members through unofficial channels. The conversations were difficult. These beings had spent thousands of years believing in their system. But cracks were forming. On Earth, President Wu addressed the entire human population. We face an uncertain future, he said. The old powers seek to isolate us, to punish us for refusing to submit. But we are not alone. Species across the galaxy are joining us, not because we're strong, but because we're willing to stand for something. He paused, looking directly into the camera. They call us primitive, violent, emotional. They say we don't understand the value of peace, but we understand it better than they do. Real peace isn't purchased with surrender. It's built on mutual respect and the willingness to defend it. In the Free Worlds Compact, shipyards worked around the clock. Human engineers shared designs with their new allies. Medical technology was integrated into human hospitals. Trade networks connected distant colonies. A new civilization was emerging, one built on cooperation, not coercion. But everyone knew the real test was still coming. The collective, humiliated by their defeats, was massing a huge fleet. Intelligence suggested they were preparing for a massive assault, and this time they wouldn't target some isolated colony. They would strike at Earth itself. Admiral gathered his forces. The human fleet, now reinforced by ships from 23 allied species, prepared for the largest battle in galactic history. They're coming for us, told his officers. Everything we've built, everything we've fought for comes down to this. Will the Council intervene? Asked. Unknown. Some Council species are watching to see what happens. If we lose, they'll say we got what we deserved. If we win, everything changes, finished. The collective fleet appeared at the edge of human space. 300 warships, the largest force they had ever assembled. Against them stood the combined forces of the Free Worlds Compact, only 147 ships. The odds were not good. But as Admiral looked at the diverse fleet arrayed around Earth, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. All ships, he broadcast. This is Admiral. Today, We fight not just for humanity, but for every species that's been told to surrender, for every world that's been given away to appease aggressors, for the idea that justice matters more than convenience." He took a breath. "Today, we show the galaxy what happens when free people stand together. All ships, engage the enemy." The battle for Earth began. The space around Earth lit up with weapons fire. 300 collective warships bore down on the free world's compact fleet. Admiral watched the tactical display, his mind processing dozens of variables at once. "They're trying to overwhelm our center," Commander reported. "Classic hammer tactics." "Let them think it's working," said. "Captain, are your fighters ready?" From her cockpit's voice came through clear and confident. "Ready, sir, just say when." The collective ships pushed forward, their weapons tearing into the compact's defensive line. 2 cruisers exploded. A human destroyer lost its engines and began to drift. "Sir, we're taking heavy losses," warned. "Hold position," ordered. "Wait for it." The collective fleet, scenting victory, bunched together as they drove toward Earth. Their ships formed a tight formation, concentrating their firepower. Exactly what wanted. "Now," he shouted, "execute." Fighter wing had been waiting hidden behind Earth's moon. Now they shot forward at maximum speed, coming at the collective fleet from an unexpected angle. Behind them came a full squadron of missile boats. The collective, expecting a defensive battle, had left their rear completely exposed. "All fighters focus on their power cores," commanded. "Vessels, launch full spread." What followed was chaos. Pilots weaved through the collective formation with precision that came from months of constant training. Each fighter knew exactly what to hit. Meanwhile, hundreds of missiles streaked toward the bunched-up collective ships. The first collective ship exploded, its power core breached. The explosion caught 2 neighboring ships, starting a chain reaction. Within minutes, the collective's tight formation became their death trap. "All ships push forward," ordered. "Don't give them time to reorganize." The free world's compact fleet surged ahead. Human-hammered collective shields. Energy weapons sliced through armor. Even the small ships, designed for trade not war, fought with desperate courage. But the collective still had numbers. They began to fall back, trying to reform their lines. Their commanders, connected through their hive mind, adapted quickly to the new threat. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides exploded, filling space with debris. Lost half her wing but kept fighting, her skills keeping her alive through impossible situations. Then something unexpected happened. A new fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. For a moment, everyone stopped fighting, uncertain who the newcomers were. Doctor's voice crackled over the communications. "Sir, those are Council ships, 4 species, at least 30 vessels." "Are they here to attack us?" asked. The answer came seconds later, when the Council ships opened fire on the collective. "All compact forces, this is Council Representative Thane," a new voice announced. "We are engaging the collective fleet. Coordinate your attacks with ours." "Couldn't believe it. Ambassador, are you seeing this?" Was aboard one of the command ships monitoring the battle. "I'm seeing it. Some council members must have decided we were worth supporting after all." The addition of council forces tipped the balance. The collective, caught between 2 enemies, began to break apart. Their ships fled in all directions. The few that stayed to fight were quickly overwhelmed. Within another hour it was over. The collective fleet was destroyed or scattered. Earth was safe. Slumped in his command chair, exhausted. Around him, his bridge crew celebrated. But he knew this was just the beginning. The next day, an unprecedented meeting took place. For the first time in galactic history, the Galactic Council convened outside the Grand Amphitheater. They met aboard the Indomitable, in human space, as guests rather than authorities. This glowing form appeared via hologram. Its light seemed dimmer than before. The Council acknowledges an error in judgment, they said, words that had never been spoken in 50,000 years. Ambassador stood before the assembled beings. Representatives from the Free Worlds Compact filled one side of the room. Council members occupied the other. Between them sat the future of galactic civilization. An error, said. 47,000 of my people died. Hundreds of other species were forced to surrender their worlds. That's more than an error. One of the council members who had joined the battle, a being called Thane who appeared as shifting patterns of light, spoke up. Ambassador Lee is correct. The council has lost its way. We were founded to prevent war, but we became a tool that enabled predators. Another council member, the one made of crystal, objected. The system maintained peace for. Peace for whom? Asked a representative. My species lost 2/3 of our worlds under your peace. Mine lost even more, added a delegate. The debate raged for hours. President Wu, attending via hologram from Earth, finally called for order. This isn't productive, he said. We're not here to assign blame, we're here to build something better. What do you propose? They asked. Stepped forward. Over the past months, she had been working with representatives from dozens of species, crafting a new framework. We propose a reformed Galactic Council, she said. Keep the Council as a place for dialogue and genuine diplomacy, but add real provisions for justice. Species that commit aggression should face consequences, not rewards. You mean military force, the crystal being said. When necessary, yes. We also propose a collective defense treaty. Any attack on one member is an attack on all. Real defense, not negotiated surrender. Doctor brought up detailed proposals on screens around the room. The plan was comprehensive. It preserved the Council's role as a diplomatic forum while adding enforcement mechanisms. Species could still negotiate disputes, but the victim would never be forced to appease the aggressor. This would fundamentally change everything, they said. Yes, agreed, that's the point. The debate continued for 3 more days. The old council members struggled with the idea. Their entire civilization was built on avoiding conflict at any cost. The new proposal asked them to accept that sometimes conflict was necessary to prevent greater evils. But the alternative was clear. The Free Worlds Compact now included 47 species. More joined every day. If the Council didn't reform, it would become irrelevant. Finally, they called for a vote. All in favor of adopting the reformed Galactic Council Charter. One by one, the votes came in. Some council members voted no, clinging to the old ways, but most voted yes. The measure passed. 50,000 years of tradition ended. A new era began. The signing ceremony took place on Earth, in the rebuilt city of Nu. Bora stood in the crowd, watching as representatives from across the galaxy put their marks on the new charter. Would your daughter be proud? Someone asked her. Bora thought about it. I think she would. Her death meant something. It changed everything. Admiral stood on the platform in his dress uniform. He had been named the first Supreme Commander of the Compact Defense Force. Ships from 100 species would serve under his authority, protecting the innocent and punishing aggressors. Strange how things work out, said beside him. 6 months ago we were outcasts. Now we're leading the galaxy. We're not leading, corrected. We're serving, there's a difference. Captain, decorated as a war hero, had been given command of the first integrated warship. Her crew included humans and a dozen other species. They trained together, fought together, trusted each other. Doctor had become an advisor to the Reformed Council, helping them understand the human perspective on justice and morality. His insights were valuable as the Council learned to balance peace with principles. President Wu gave a speech at the ceremony. Today marks a new beginning, he said. Not because humanity conquered anyone, we didn't. We simply refused to accept injustice, and in doing so we discovered we weren't alone. Species across the galaxy shared our values. They just needed someone to stand up first. He looked out at the assembled crowds, both human and alien. The Galactic Council told us that peace required surrender, that harmony meant accepting whatever those in power decided. They were wrong. Real peace requires justice. Real harmony requires mutual respect. And sometimes, the most peaceful thing you can do is stand up and say no. Ambassador was named the first Secretary General of the Reformed Council. She would spend her days mediating disputes, building bridges, and making sure the Council never again confused submission with peace. In her first address, she spoke simply. We rejected negotiation that day in the Grand Amphitheater, but we didn't reject dialogue. We rejected a corrupt system that protected predators. There's a difference. Moving forward, this council will negotiate in good faith. We will seek peaceful solutions, but we will never again reward aggression to avoid conflict. The collective, meanwhile, had been broken, their remaining forces scattered to the edges of known space. Without the council's protection, they faced the consequences of their actions. Species they had victimized for years now hunted them. It was rough justice, but it was justice. Some council members complained that the new system was too harsh, that it would lead to more conflict, not less. Had an answer for them. We've fought 3 major battles since the compact was formed, he said. 3. In the same period under the old system, there were 17 raids that resulted in species losing their worlds. Our way isn't perfect, but it's better. A year after the rejection, Earth celebrated. The holiday was called Sovereignty Day. It marked the moment when humanity stood alone and said no to injustice. Children learned about Ambassador's speech in the council chamber. They heard about Admiral's tactical brilliance. They read Boras' testimony. The story became part of human culture, a reminder that some things were worth standing for. But it wasn't just humans who celebrated. Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds, similar holidays emerged. Species who had joined the compact marked their own days of liberation, when they finally stood up to those who had oppressed them. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Peace was valuable, but not at any price. Justice mattered, courage mattered, and sometimes the most diplomatic thing you could do was refuse to negotiate. On the bridge of the Indomitable, now the flagship of the Compact Defense Force, Admiral looked out at the stars. They didn't seem lonely anymore. They seemed full of possibility. Sir, incoming transmission from the frontier, a communications officer reported. A species called the is requesting membership in the compact. They say the collective has been raiding them for years, and they're ready to fight back. Smiled, send them the charter, and tell them we'll help them defend their worlds. That's what we do now. Beside him, Ambassador's hologram appeared. Another one, that makes 63 member species. How many are left in the old council? Down to 4. The is still there along with the most traditional species, but they don't have much power anymore. Do you think they'll join us eventually? Considered maybe, or maybe they'll fade away. Either way, the galaxy has changed. We changed it. We just said no, replied. Sometimes that's all it takes. As the Indomitable prepared to escort the defense fleet to there, reflected on the journey. Humanity had come to the stars hopping to find their place among ancient civilizations. Instead, they had rebuilt galactic civilization in their own image. Not through conquest, not through superiority, simply by refusing to accept that injustice was the price of peace. It was, he thought, a very human thing to do.